Hey guys, my name is Ryan.
And my name is Miska.
And welcome to Overwatch Central. So we haven't actually spoken about the proposed changes to Junkrat and Roadhog yet, and we really firstly want to remind you that both of these changes are still proposed and may not be exactly the way that Jeff Goodman says they would be. However, we do have a strong understanding that what we're hearing will go out onto the PTR and probably live as well. Miska will go over what these changes are in particular first, for those that don't know quite what we're talking about yet, but the main reason that we wanted to make this video is we have two kinds of changes. One, on paper, seems absolutely perfect, exactly what Overwatch wants to be doing with some of the hero balancing, and one that seems really lackluster, pretty boring, and just doesn't really seem to solve the problem with that hero. We'll talk about the changes and their implications, but first, I desperately want to know what you guys think of the potential Roadhog and Junkrat changes. I understand that a lot of people have said that they feel that Roadhog is fairly balanced, while some think that he's completely trashed here. Do discuss it in the comments below. I want to hear what you think first, and then let us know what you think about the proposed changes and whether you feel it's going to help. But first, let's go over said changes.
Let's start with Junkrat's, as his changes are the most recent ones spoken about. Blizzard forum user Grey Falcon suggested some changes to Junkrat, which included a lower cooldown of concussion mine, but damage increased on trap, making trap way more dangerous. Jeff Goodman chimed in and said that these suggestions were actually fairly close to what Blizzard were currently working on. The cooldown on mines is a lot shorter and therefore has more utility and use overall. The mine is a really solid ability that allows Junkrat to finish off low health heroes but also travel and traverse the map with ease. Decreasing the cooldown means that Junkrat is going to be bopping around the place and will be a real pain to deal with. Let's move on to Roadhog though, and we actually had Jeff Goodman again pop up randomly in a post that user Soulborn wrote suggesting some hog changes. Again, he said that these changes recommended were the ones that they intended to sort of try out. The changes involved damage reduction to Hog whilst he's using his heal, mostly to make him a little bit less of an ult battery that he currently is. Jeff Goodman said that they intended to decrease the damage taken for Roadhog by 50% when using the ability, but also allow him to move around whilst casting. This change is interesting with what it's trying to do. It's very clearly a defensive ability now, and we want to talk about which change we really like and what we think could be good for the game versus a change which seems to be going the wrong way entirely.
So it comes as no surprise that Junkrat's change is our favourite one out of the two. The reason being is that Blizzard have really identified what Junkrat's role should be on a team, and that his main source of damage and the way that he plays should be based around the utility of his mine, but also damage done from a trap. Up until now, apart from spam and chokes, Junkrat isn't all that good at anything else other than basically trolling. When battles become close quarters, as it does a lot with dive, he can really struggle with how inaccurate his weapon can be, and also how ability dependent he can then become. Most heroes have insane abilities or fairly low cooldown abilities that can get them out of there. For example, D.Va, Winston, Genji has the wall climb. So he really struggles to hold his ground even though he's meant to be a hold your ground sort of hero. These changes seem clever. They can actually make Junkrat a viable pick against dive comps in a lot of situations, and most of all, it seems super fun on the face of it. This is exactly the way Blizzard should have been handling their buffs. We've said a lot about Doomfist in particular as well, but if you make a hero fun to play, players just will make him viable. Again, that's probably what we're going to see with Doomfist. He may not be the strongest DPS pick, but because he's fun and interesting to play and of course new, we're going to see a lot of him over the next few months. I don't necessarily think that we're going to see any complete resurgence in Junkrat, but this change is a step in the right direction. I'm really excited for anything that comes out like this, and he can actually make a difference against dive if his traps do more damage. It becomes more based around territorial and positional play. He'd be the perfect defensive peel, and I'm just so excited to see that come to fruition.
And that moves us on to the other change, Hog. We were never really a fan of Hog's role within a team basically being this unkillable, high damage one-shotting hero. It seemed that he was just too good at so many things. Me and Ryan both play Winston and D.Va as well, and with both heroes we'd struggle the most against Roadhog. He wasn't impossible to go up against, you just had to be smarter and play around his abilities essentially, and Roadhog's role in a team used to just be to be a big scary guy that would make it more difficult for enemies to dive his team. Now that his damage per shot has been nerfed, it just doesn't feel like he really has a good role within a team, and this is the main problem with Hog's new changes. Sure, the take a breather damage reduction and movement is a nice interesting change to add, but it doesn't really allow Roadhog to do any job better. He'll be able to tank for a bit longer, but it doesn't really strengthen any defining role. It does sort of prevent his biggest weakness to be as much of a problem for him, but overall he still had his biggest strengths weakened, meaning that he's kind of a bland vanilla hero that is moderately balanced but just no fun to play really. Of course, it goes without saying that it might be different once we get to try him. You never know how these sort of things turn out in the end until you actually get your hands on the changes. However, you have two big changes here. One which is incredibly fun and may not be built for viability, but does make Junkrat more enticing and promising, versus one that seems smart with what they're trying to do with that aspect, but ultimately doesn't really resolve the fact that Hog now is lackluster in pretty much all departments but just staying alive.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. Again, do let me know what you think of these changes in particular. We've spoken about how we'd necessarily go about in inverted commas fixing Roadhog, or at least what I would do in particular, but I understand everybody's a different answer, and I am curious to hear what you think in the comments below. Whether you feel these changes are good, bad, indifferent about them, do let us know below. Subscribe for more Overwatch content if you haven't already, and until next time, take care. We'll see you then.